Coming up after the break, does smoking pot make you a smoker? Not according to some insurance companies. We'll roll out the reason why. That's in the roundup. Coming up next. Scotia Bank and CIBC are doubling their funding to Montreal's Thinking Capital, an online financial tech company that provides loans to small businesses. That's the story that kicks us off on the roundup. Nicole Verkindt is the founder and president of OMX. So when you look at this story of CIBC and Scotia investing in Thinking Capital, in Fintech in general, is it the same thing to innovate as it is to buy innovative companies?
No, absolutely not.
But it accomplishes the same goal, doesn't it?
It does. And look, there's a huge advantage, clearly, to the banks being so big and having the regulations they do. And we saw that in 2008. And I think Canada probably has the largest banks in the world. Mm-hmm. So you park that away as a good thought. But then when you get to innovation and the fact that these fintech companies could take, a McKinsey report said 60% of their market, I think the best bet for them is to be partnering with the startup community, and we know the startup community can move very, very quickly and give consumers what they want.
And is this that? Like, is this a good example of that?
Absolutely. I think what it's giving the big banks is deal flow, really. It's giving them customer acquisition, customer acquisition costs are generally extremely expensive with banks, especially.
And I hadn't heard of this before I saw this story. I went on their website, Thinking Capital. They're Montreal-based. They've seen a 40% increase in financing demand, and they basically broker dealer. They loan money from $5,000 to I think up to $300,000. It's a bit of a niche. I guess the bank must think they're going to eat up that part anyways. Let them, as long as they're part of our family.
Well, there's a huge demand for companies looking for capital. We see it in OMX all the time. We're linking up big companies to small companies, and then they come back to us. Can you figure out how we can get loans? Well, that's not really what we do, but there's clearly huge demand, and the big banks aren't servicing them because of the paperwork and the regulation, which are the big things that are so positive about our banking system. So, but I like the idea of the partnerships between the big corporations and startups.
So clearly OMX should get in there and start financing deals. These guys
are ideas on the fly here.
This next story is about Sun Life and BMO changing their policies to address pot users and saying, because if you used to sign up for a life insurance policy and you admitted to even recreational or medicinal use of marijuana, you were classified as a smoker, which had all different kinds of repercussions. They're changing that. To what extent is this just a straight up and down example of the normalization of marijuana in Canadian society?
Yeah, I think the stigmatization was so huge, and it was seen as something criminal. And so if you admitted to that, then you're paying 3 times more. I saw some people not able to get mortgages.
I saw that. That's crazy.
You can't get a mortgage because you've tried it a few times. That's really crazy. I think they were taking advantage of that situation, and now that it's becoming so much more socially acceptable, and we're going to see legalization potentially soon, I think that's what's happening. And I think it's a good chance for Sun Life to grab some market share here.
Well, and that's just it, right? Like, this looks to me, from the outside, I'm not involved in that business, I don't know, but it sure looks like they're saying there's going to be an incredible market. People are going to be more honest about their drug use. Let's get out in front of this and bring everybody who wants to admit it and be honest on their forums, bring them into our business, because this is changing, and it's underfoot, happening and changing right now.
Yeah, and if to get life insurance you have to do blood tests, then they're just going to be more competitive by saying, okay, we admit that you don't have to pay 3 times more because you've tried it twice, or
or even if you use it recreationally, or you eat it, or whatever the case may be. Do you feel like we are actually going to see? We talk a lot about we're on the path towards legalization. This is going to happen. I've seen governments back down from easier promises than this, and this is a difficult one. Are you confident this is actually going to go through? That we'll see legalization?
I'm not entirely sure. I do know it's complicated, though.
Yeah, darn complicated. So Canadian Pacific Railway wants to put cameras into their locomotives so they can watch their drivers. And I'm torn on this. We are an incredibly filmed society. You go to the bank machine, you get filmed. We're being filmed right now as part of my job. Is this part of the debate over safety versus privacy?
It absolutely is. I mean, there actually are a lot of benefits to being filmed. I listened to a podcast about UPS and how they are tracking absolutely everything, right? Yeah. Always take 3 rights instead of a left.
Yeah.
They track everything. So if you take a left, you're now They come down hard on you. And the optimization and increased efficiency that UPS has seen because of that tracking is huge. And there's safety benefits, and there's all these benefits that come from it. And there's benefits that come from employees just knowing they're being tracked.
But knowing you're being tracked is one thing, right? Like, you know that you turn left instead of right, you stop for a hot dog when you shouldn't have, is kind of, okay, that is obsequious maybe. But this, like a camera just filming you, listening to you, what you're talking about, what you're chatting with your coworker, about your boss, about your family life, I mean, it starts to get a little creepy, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The technology I thought of is a technology I'm aware of in Toronto called Visor, which is for parents. So you apply it to your kids' phones. If you bought them the phone, you can do that. And it will automatically pick up, keywords, maybe marijuana use, nudity. It'll find those key things that you're actually looking for and sift out all the other stuff. So you can have your personal conversations, but there is technology already that might be the best of both worlds, but I'm an optimist, so I'm not sure.
Speaking of optimists, how do you feel about the ad industry? We've seen this report out today that mobile ad blocking rose by a whopping 90%. So these are people using ad blockers on their phones and just, sort of shutting out an industry that was just trying to get its feet under itself on mobile and online ads. Is the use of this good? Is it natural? Is it just sort of what we have to deal with?
It's actually bad. I mean, look how much effort publishers go to in being neutral and creating good content. CBC is one example. And if they can't get the revenue somewhere, they have to find it somewhere else. Yeah. And so if we continue to block these ads, it's just not going to be a sustainable model. I looked into the actual start of the internet. The initial thought behind what the revenue model would be sort of these micropayments. So it's more like a hydrometer. So if I'm on Facebook all day long, I'm going to pay more money to Facebook than if I'm on another website. So that was the initial concept, but then to get it out to market, and it was some PhD's project in Switzerland, they decided, well, let's make it free. And so then advertising became the main model, but it's becoming more and more a very tough model, and the success of ads is very low, even when they have cookies and they're tracking you, and they're actually delivering what you've already been searching for. So it's a very hard model, and if publishers aren't getting paid, then some other model will emerge, and that does worry me.
We have a chart here. Let's take a look at this, because it's remarkable when you look. This is just over the last year, the number of people using these mobile ad blocking technology. Over the last year, you go from less than 190 million, and then it climbs all the way up to now it's near 420 million people now using this. A fifth of the total smartphones in the world are using this. The vast majority of it right now is in the East. China, 159 million Chinese using this. Only a tiny fraction of people in the United States. Is it inevitable that this does come and sort of sweeps into the West as well?
I think it is. What's interesting is some of the ad blockers, their actual revenue model is being paid by the advertisers to deliver only their ads.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so, some revenue model will have to emerge.
It's got to be a really tough time to be in advertising. And just, so do you look at this and then throw up your hands and say, I don't know what we're going to do now. But, they won't. They'll find a way, I suppose. Are you optimist?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah? All right, we'll leave it at that.
I like the micropayments business.
Well, that's actually really interesting. We should circle back on that. Nicole, thanks a ton.
Thanks, Peter.